Right now, somewhere in your house, there is probably a pack of birth control pills, a box of condoms, or an IUD inside someone's body. Modern contraception is barely 60 years old. The pill arrived in 1960. The IUD became widespread in the 1970s. Before that, Salm, and for the 300,000 years before that, Yaksor, your ancestors faced the exact same problem. They did not want a baby every year for 30 years. What they did about it would horrify a modern doctor. The earliest written contraceptive recipe we have comes from Egypt. The Kahun Medical Papyrus, dated to roughly 1850 BCE, prescribes a pessary made of honey, sodium carbonate, and crocodile dung. Modern researchers working in a lab in 2003 tested the recipe. Honey is mildly antibacterial. Sodium carbonate kills sperm. The crocodile dung is largely useless, though it did create an acidic barrier that probably slowed sperm down. Verdict: the recipe partially worked. But Egypt is recent. Egypt is barely the day before yesterday in human history. To find the real beginning of birth control, you have to leave the cities, leave farming, leave everything written down, and look at the people who never abandoned the hunter-gatherer life. In the 1980s, anthropologists Kim Hill and Hillard Kaplan spent years living with the Aich people of Paraguay. The Aich had never used a modern contraceptive in their lives, and yet they spaced their children 3 to 4 years apart, almost identical to the spacing seen in skeletal remains from 50,000 years ago. They had a method. The method was older than agriculture, older than language, older than us. The single most powerful contraceptive in human history is something no modern woman would recognize as one: a baby on the breast for 4 years. Among the Shatkung people of the Kalahari, mothers nurse continuously, often hourly, sometimes during sleep, for 3 to 4 years per child. The constant stimulation suppresses ovulation almost completely. A 1980 study by Melvin Connor and Carol Worthman, published in the journal Science, found that Kung women remained infertile for an average of 35 months after each birth. No pill, no barrier. Just biology, weaponized through behavior. This pattern shows up everywhere hunter-gatherers have been studied: the Hadza of Tanzania, the Ache of Paraguay, the Aboriginal Australians, the Inuit. The result is a natural 3 to 4 year child spacing. Across the 200,000 years of behaviorally modern human existence, this method probably prevented more pregnancies than every condom ever manufactured. In the ancient world, Silphium was worth more than silver. The plant grew only on a narrow strip of coastline in what is now Libya, the region the Greeks called Cyrenaica. It was so important to the city of Cyrene that the city minted its image on coins. A heart-shaped seed pod, recognizable on Greek currency from the 6th century BCE. Roman writers, Pliny the Elder, Cyrannus of Ephesus, Dioscorides, described Silphium as a contraceptive and abortifacient, taken once a month with water. Caesar's treasury reportedly contained over 1,000 pounds of it. By the 1st century CE, demand had outstripped supply. The Romans tried to farm Silphium. It refused to grow. By the time Pliny was writing in 77 CE, he reported that only a single stalk had been found in years. It was sent to the Emperor Nero as a curiosity. After that, Silphium disappears from the record, a plant that human beings drove to extinction. Not for food, not for medicine, to control their own fertility. The heart shape you draw on a Valentine's card may be the silhouette of that lost plant. In ancient Greece, the physician Hippocrates recommended a pessary of myrrh and white lead. In medieval Europe, women used wool soaked in honey, lemon juice, or vinegar. In India, women drank tea made from neem leaves. The strangest of all is wild carrot, Queen Anne's lace. In 1986, the historian John Riddle published research at Emory University showing that Queen Anne's lace seeds, used as a contraceptive across at least 2,000 years of written record, contained compounds that block the implantation of a fertilized egg. The effect was confirmed in lab rats in 1986 by Lal et al. Pomegranate seeds, used since antiquity, were shown by Soviet researchers in the 1970s to suppress fertility in rats by up to 75%. Your ancestors were not making this up. They had a working herbal pharmacy. They had test tube human evolution as the experiment. Every plant that ever worked was remembered. Everyone that did not was forgotten. The knowledge was passed down for thousands of years, and mostly between women. and most of it was lost only after the witch trials of the 16th and 17th centuries criminalized the women who held it. And then there is the part nobody wants to write about. Among the Ache people, anthropologists Hill and Hurtado documented something painful. When a child was born during a famine, or when the previous child was too young to be weaned, or when the father had died, the newborn was killed. Quickly, often before the mother had even seen its face. They were not unique. The same pattern appears in hunter-gatherer groups across every continent. Among the Inuit, where infants born during the long winter darkness were sometimes left in the snow. Among Aboriginal Australians. Among the Yanomami of the Amazon. Among medieval Europeans, who called it overlying, claiming the infant had been accidentally smothered while sharing the bed. This is the ugliest fact in the history of human reproduction. Where there were no plants, no breastfeeding window, no other option, there was infanticide. For most of the 300,000 years of behaviorally modern humans, the limit on the number of children a couple raised was not biology, it was choice. And the choice was sometimes made after birth. Modern contraception is barely a single human lifetime old. The pill arrived in 1960, the IUD in 1968, Plan B in 1999. Your grandmother almost certainly did not have access to anything more reliable than what a Roman matron had 2,000 years ago. The result has been the greatest demographic shift in human history. Family size in industrial nations has fallen from an average of 6 children per woman in 1800 to less than 2 in 2020. We treat this as a modern miracle of medicine. But the desire to control fertility, the desire that drove people to harvest silphium until it went extinct, to chew Queen Anne's lace seeds, to nurse for 4 years straight. That desire is not new. It is as old as our species. The only new thing is the option. For the first time in 300,000 years, a woman can decide not to have a child without a plant, without a baby on the breast for 4 years, and without a decision made in the dark. Somewhere in Libya, 2,000 years ago, the last silphium plant was eaten or trampled, and a species' favorite contraceptive disappeared forever. Somewhere in Paraguay, an ache mother nursed a 4-year-old to keep from conceiving a 5th child she could not feed. Somewhere in medieval England, a woman swallowed a tea of wild carrot seeds and prayed it would work. And somewhere tomorrow, you will open a packet, or refill a prescription, or remember to take a pill. And you will do in 3 seconds what your great-grandmother spent 3,000 years trying to do. You may be the first generation of women in history to have a real choice.